Hey guys, welcome into episode 57 of Coffee and Chel. I'm your host, Sleeves, joined by my co-host, Padre and Kesso. And today we are going to talk about the real thing. We're going to put the game aside for a little while, and we are going to talk about some actual hockey. And this episode is dedicated to the Devils because they simply will never lose a game again. Now at 13 wins, the unholiest of numbers, they are currently just dominating, and still somehow second in the league.
Dude, that was the ultimate jinx ever.
Oh, yeah. No,
I can't wait till you press publish on this and then they lose the next game.
It is going to be nuts. So at the time of this recording, they have beaten the Edmonton Oilers and they have won 13 in a row. All right, fellas. So it's only been a day since like our last episode. So I feel like really nothing interesting happened in our lives. And like you guys are dads now. So I feel like there's not a lot interesting going on anyways.
I mean, every day's interesting.
GWC
yeah,
news.
we did. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We'll have a whole episode dedicated to that. Obviously, we did say no hockey ultimate team, and I opened with GWC. So,
hey, that's the real thing too. That ties it in.
Okay, off the cuff, what is the most not Devils related? Okay, something that is not listed on the left hand side here or right hand side. Give me something you want to talk about. A topic that you find interesting. Go. Padre. You go first. First thing comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind in the NHL. Jeez.
I gave you low hanging fruit here.
I don't know. What are you thinking?
The Blues rattling off.
I don't care about that because I see it all the time. I think the biggest thing for me is like right now, just to see like kind of like what happens is with Shane Wright. Like I know we were.
Hey, that's on the sidebar.
Yeah, that's on the sidebar, bro.
Oh, it's on the sidebar. My bad. Well, I just that's like the one thing I'm just curious to see what happens. I feel like every day I've been texting like people about it and to see if like anything happens. But that's my biggest thing.
Yeah,
I think it's been interesting to see the. I know the Sabres won tonight as we're recording this. They destroyed the Canadians like 7-2.
Yeah, they killed.
But they had that hot start.
There's 4 goals in the first 4 minutes.
Yeah, they had that hot start. Then they're calling it like they're falling back down to earth right now.
They don't have a goalie.
Yeah, even then, like I hope they turn it around.
It sucks because this is what they do, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm living through this as a Sharks fan. They did so bad to start the season, but Karlsson's on a 100-point pace, and James Reimer is too good of a goalie, and now Meyer's scoring. Like the roster is too good to be that bad, and I think this is the worst place to be as a sports fan. Like, it is the absolute worst. You have no shot at a championship, and you have no shot at an impact player, at a immediate impact player.
Right.
And I think that, like, it is just absolutely brutal. And the Buffalo Sabres live in that. Like, because they always have a win streak at some point, like, where they tank, like, they just ruin their draft pick. Like, other than the Dahlin one where they won, and he looks incredible. Second in the league in defenseman scoring behind Erik Karlsson. He looks like he is now a bona fide player. Him and Power, like, are they not going to be the most dominant defensive pair in like a couple of years? Like I was watching the Leafs game. I want to bring this up. Watching the Leafs game, Owen Power I did not realize how big he is.
He's 6'6", right?
But it's like I don't know if he wears big shoulder pads or there's something, because I remember he was in the corner against, I think, John Tavares, who's not a small guy, and it legitimately looked like video game stuff. I was like, oh my God, like I just didn't realize it. Like when you watch him, he's just massive, and he's just a kid. Like, you know, like it's going to be impressive to watch him and Dahlin cook for a while. So let's get into the Devils. For 13 straight wins, the Fire Lindy chants were raining down at the Rock 3 games into the season. I believe they were losing 2-0 to Anaheim, and they ended up winning that game, and I think that started the win streak. Like, I can't remember for off the top of my head, but the amount, like, do you think locked into a playoff spot?
Yeah, I think they're too good right now. Like, I mean, obviously anything can happen, injuries can happen. But they're playing so good as a team. Like they're like 3 good defensive pairings, solid depth on forwards. Like I don't even think it matters who their goalie is. Like they're just a really solid team. Murdering
the like analytics. Like they are absolutely. I want to say I don't know if it's still the case, but they had the most shots on net or shot attempts and the least given up. and I don't know if that's ever happened in like the history of the league.
Yeah, I mean, just recently, I think Carolina's passed them up a little bit. I know Florida's pretty high up in that, but they're like top 3 in pretty much all the analytic categories, which is crazy.
Yeah. No, it's nuts to see, and we'll see. I believe they're dealing with some injuries. Padre.
Yeah, in the net, obviously Blackwood's out, but like kind of like Kessler said with Vanacek, he's not like an amazing goalie by any means, but he's playing like fine and good enough, and probably better than they expected. And they even got some games out of Schmid, their third string goalie, when he came up, and that's when I thought the winning streak would go, would belly up. But it's like, I don't know, dude. They're not the old Devils. They're not boring to watch anymore. And
this is what
it's a little more exciting.
This is why I was so frustrated with them over the last couple of years, because they have never, all of their draft picks, like their impact ones, were not ones that their team earned. In the sense, like they didn't win the lottery outright like last year. They got, because everyone forgets they got Nemec, like the best defenseman in the draft is a New Jersey Devil, and he isn't even playing yet. But they were good enough to not draft him, right? Hughes, they weren't.
He's gonna
first
be
overall.
Unreal too when he comes there. I was watching him this weekend at Michigan. He's gonna be. He might be the best Hughes by the end of it. Honestly.
Yeah, Luke. Yeah, exactly. Like I wasn't even talking about Jack. Like Luke. Like all of the draft picks. Like it's why I think Luke. They didn't win the draft. I think that was like their one. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't think they moved up for Luke.
Was he the 4th
overall?
Off the top
of my head.
Was he 4th?
He was 4th. I don't think they moved up for him, but Jack, they definitely moved up. They won the lottery for that. Yeah, it's just, and same with Heischer. They weren't supposed to win that one.
He's really come into his own the last 2 years, I'd say. He looks like, now he looks like he's a complete player. Jeff Merrick, I know all the time, our first big podcast guest right there. He was, he always pumps his tires. He's like, when's he going to win the Selke? Like, it's any year now, whenever Bergeron stops playing, he's impressive. He's real good.
But like that's like a thing. So like they were always getting these insane players, but they were never this bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, man, at some point something's got to. I didn't think this would happen. I don't think anyone thought this would happen.
No.
But yeah. So you're saying, Padre, do you think that they're locked into a playoff like team?
Yeah, my like they always say it's what American Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving. My thing is like, dude, if you're 10 points up on the people on the wild card, you're kind of safe unless you really just crap the bed.
Like that would be everyone.
Like Vegas right now, like I think they're safe. I think obviously Boston.
I mean, we're talking about the New Jersey win streak. Boston's still first in the league.
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's got to be like a stat that like I need ESPN stats and info, but like if you go on a 13-game win streak in the first 16 games of the season and you aren't in first, like what I mean, like that's
I believe going back to our predictions, I think we were definitely, no one predicted Boston was going to be first, but we were all like, I think like wrong on the Devils. Like I think like I think Sleeves, you were like one of the people I was like, I think they'll be like good or like better or something. And I think I was like, no, I don't even think they'll make the playoffs because they're goaltending, which like I said, I mean, we're 19 games into it. I just let it play out. That's my big thing. Like a week ago, everybody, I tweeted Frank Cervalli the other day because he was crapping on the Blues like 2 weeks ago. Well, they went on an 8-game winning streak, and they're in a playoff spot, and everyone now saying, oh, the Blues will make the playoffs.
You hate to see it happen, too, because you were like, it's not going to happen, guys. Stop living in, was it 2017? Well, no, you're like, stop living in the past.
It was because of the Flyers game, and then they got killed against the Flyers, because everyone tries to make everything into like, oh, well, they went there, and they got drunk at a bar, and they sang Gloria, and then they went on the win streak. Like, yeah, I just like tell people like move on. That's not why. Like the reason why I'll go on the Blues win streak in a minute whenever we're done talking about the Devils. But it's a whole different thing. But it's just funny to me. Like I said, it's a long season though. You never know. I mean,
I think it's kind of sad to realize that you're just saying like we're 20 games into the season. Season's already 25% over.
I know.
That's nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Feels like we just started.
It goes by extremely fast. Let's get into some. Okay, so let's talk about some trends. All right. Let's talk about some trends. So obviously the Blues, we did not think they were as bad as they were. What did they start like?
They started 3-0. Then the Sod father, Brandon Sod, Pittsburgh native over there by Kesso. I shut him down when we were like peewees. I just think the guy's a Swiss Army knife. Like he's a lot more important than people realize. He only has like 3 goals right now, but the way he plays with O'Reilly and getting O'Reilly's like the kind of guy that's like the engine behind the team. And when he was struggling, I think when Sal was struggling, and out of all people, they put Josh Olivo on their line, and that guy's been like a journeyman. But whatever reason, it works. Like the whole line's changed. Thomas and Kyrou have picked it up a lot. Kyrou was getting a lot of flack from that contract he got. Having a healthy Buchnevich has helped. But, I mean, the back end's been beat up. I mean, Krug's out now. Parayko has a back issue. I mean, it's been plug and play. And I don't know, like, the teams just came together. They started playing Blues hockey, which is like get the puck in deep and just muck it up and get the puck on net. And I mean, it's a very simple, style, and it works, and it's worked for years now with Berube. And I mean, a guy like Noel Achari, which I know he tucked like 20 goals a few years ago in Florida. I mean, he's been one of our best players, and he was just kind of like an afterthought signing for a lot of Blues fans. And I mean, him, Shen, and Barbashev have made like a really nice identity line, is what Chiefs calling him. And I don't know. It's just and Bennington's been really good too. There was a lot of people saying like Nick Alberga. I know he was like hating on the Blues goaltending. I'm like, dude, if you watch, I always love these people that watch box scores. Like, like tonight, like people like to watch Buffalo and be like, oh, that team looks like they're turning the corner. Well, did you watch the game? No, I didn't watch the game, but they won 7 or whatever. It's like, dude, well, yeah, you didn't watch the game though. It's like the box score people crack me up because. People
I feel personally attacked here, Padre.
No, yours is shots. But this guy will go on Twitter. This guy will go on Twitter and say like, "Oh, the Blues goaltending, like they're gonna need some help." And it's like, well, yeah, if you like look at the box scores, like yeah, they're losing 8 games in a row. Well, go watch the games, and then I show you guys like those clips of Bennington having 4 backdoor goals.
That one that you showed us. Yeah, it was one game, and it was literally 4 backdoor goals.
The back doors were going on for like 3 or 4 games, and like everybody, like the media was like. Why? Like the media starting to ask like Berube, like why are the back doors going in? And he's just like I don't know. I don't know why. Like and so that's what people don't understand. It's like if you don't watch the games, you don't get it. Like somebody like Erik Karlsson right now, like if they ask Sleeves like, oh, like what's why is he so good all of a sudden? I just see his stats going up. It's like, well, I mean, watch a game. Like watch how dominant he looks.
No Brent Burns.
Yeah,
it's no Brent Burns. We'll talk about Karlsson in a little bit too. But Seattle, real deal.
I don't know.
7-2-1. I mean, we're gonna box score watch with the Seattle. There's one thing though.
You have to box score watch with Seattle because they're the most boring team in the league,
and they play it like when we're all sleeping. Anyway,
bro, the soul of Martin Jones.
Yeah,
like playoff Martin Jones. He's almost leading the league in save percentage. Man,
good goaltending goes a long way.
Jones that
could you imagine if that was the case a few years back?
I mean, dude, he dragged the Sharks to the Cup fight. Like, dude, that year that they went against Pittsburgh, dude, that was the worst Sharks roster that they had in their 15-year run of making the playoffs, and he just dragged them to Pittsburgh. But good for him, because I don't know. It was all in his head. I remember him trying in the one offseason to try and change his goaltending style. There's a big article on it. He wanted to be more like Jonathan Quick, who's instead of being positionally sound, he relies on like reflex a lot more. I read this huge article. It was very interesting. I'm gonna see if I can find it, but it was on, and I think I talked to you about this, Stewie. There was like the type of goaltenders who rely purely on their like
size,
instinct. Tim Thomas, Dominic Hasek, those kinds of goalies where like positionally they're not like great. And then there's goaltenders that are like, I don't want to say like system.
They rely on athleticism. There's guys that rely on their body. Yeah. Like Devin Dubnyk was a big guy that would just rely on the puck kind of hitting him.
Exactly.
And just being in the right position. And I listened to
Jones Jones would never make the huge Jonathan Quick type save, but he would just give up 2 or 3 goals maybe, but he wouldn't give up the bad ones.
Right.
And then there's one offseason, the one before Peter DeBoer got fired, it was after they lost to Pittsburgh. He tried, it was weird. He spent the whole offseason trying to like be more instinctive, and it just absolutely derailed his career. Like he became awful. His timing was terrible. He was letting in shots that just were no screens. Like it was so weird, but good to see him because Seattle, it's good to see Seattle kind of come through here.
Funny is that they have Grubauer after this year for another 4 years at like $5.9 million, and
I mean they have no other like salary.
That contract's so bad. I was a big Grubauer hater. Not like I don't think he's like a god awful goalie. I was just so like, man, that is gonna.
Did you see the picture of when they claimed Magnus Hellberg and Grubauer and net?
Yeah.
Dog. That was, if you guys haven't seen that, it's Hellberg in front. They're working on screens, and it legitimately looks like a mini me.
You think that's bad? You should have seen me when I used to skate with Ben Bishop, because Ben Bishop's from St. Louis.
The disparity between you two.
Yeah, and it's almost like the picture of me and Sean Ram Jackson at the All-Star game when he's like 6'9" and I'm like 5'7". And when I was on my feet, I was as tall as Bishop when he was sitting on his knees. Like,
did you do the Dave Portnoy stand on your tippy toes to look taller?
Dude, there's no hope. If you meet Rammer in person, for anyone that follows the NHL video game knows who Sean Ram Jackson is, if you meet him in person, unless you're 6'5", you're gonna feel real small. Like, I remember at the GWC in 2019, we were in HyperX, and in the upper stage where you walked in before the grandstands, he was almost touching the roof.
Yeah,
like I was like, this is.
Dude, he's like a giraffe. He's like when you go to the zoo, he literally looks like a guy.
Yeah,
you can just see him everywhere you go. Like, he's huge. And but no, going back to the Kraken though, I don't know. I just feel like the Oilers are going to...
Remind me of the Blues, man. They have all second liners.
Yeah, I just feel like they're going to get passed up by the Oilers, though. It's just, like, almost inevitable.
Yeah, yes.
Like, I feel like McDavid and them are just, they're just on it. We were just talking about this for the podcast. They're just absolute heater, him and Draisaitl. Like, one of the best dynamic duos ever, possibly. Like, I mean, they're unbelievable.
We went back and looked at some stats, Kesso, on Draisaitl and McDavid. They are at like 1.6 point per game pace over like the last like 4 seasons, and it's like not like it is absurd.
Yeah.
That I mean, they made the conference final, but they got crushed. So like it kind of like they didn't make the. I don't know, like you know what I mean. We won the same amount of games as they did in the conference final, but yeah, it's staggering. But the thing about talking about the Oilers. Dude, Jack Campbell, off the rails now. Puck hit him when he was benched, drilled him in the nose, broke his nose. Like, first of all, that's got to suck. Painful. And you can't play through that, I'm assuming.
It wouldn't be. It'd be tough to breathe.
Yeah, like, and not to mention, like, yeah, like, it would just be like, yeah, because, like, when you have your chin on it, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like
never had,
than a player.
On the bench, I never had any calls like that. Like, and like in youth hockey, they always made us wear our helmets on the bench and stuff, like as goalies, we backed up. But yeah, that's like the old fear, I guess, of the people that always tell you to put on your helmet if you're sitting on the bench or something when you're a kid. But dude, man, that's a tough. He just has no luck so far. I feel bad for him. He seems like a great guy. I watched that Amazon Leafs documentary. Yeah, it was like really cool, and he just seems like such a like down to earth, appreciative of where he's at because he went through like hell and back pretty much with his career, and just the teammates loved him in Toronto. And I mean, you go from one media hotbed to any Canadian city's like brutal to play in. Probably
he let in one bad goal against Montreal in Game 7, and like there's no one on that team that can battle through that, and it's just.
If I was him, and I know the money's like where you go, like kind of go, and like the team, and like the Oilers are good, like obviously offensively, but I would have went somewhere nice and quiet and just kind of wrote out my contract, and maybe like Washington instead of Kemper, because he was like the hot goalie on the market this summer. You know what I mean? He was the number one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Last couple, then we'll bring up a couple other teams in terms of like trending. Toronto back now in second, but they lose Morgan Riley for what seems like a long time. And is Muzzin back?
I think he was like skating or something. I saw the other day.
Yeah, like dude, their defense is not a D core that can handle long losses of like their top 4.
Right.
And so like that'll be interesting. Hey man, I got a defenseman for you. Let me tell you. I mean, you want to figure out a trade, Leafs? I mean, come on, you love $1 million players. But Tampa too, dude. Tampa had such a bad start, and Vasilevsky is still awful right now. Like, I believe at the time of this recording, it's over 3 goals against per game. And they're back into 3rd place in the Atlantic. I think, like, Ottawa, man. I think that's the last one you guys start. We talked about... I know I talked about it. I brought this up that in hockey, more than any other sport, when you make a ton of changes, it seems to be the one sport where, like, it requires so much gelling, that you don't see, like, on paper. Where, like, on paper, additions can't, like, fully quantify what's going to happen, and every time that there's teams where they add in a ton of new guys, it just doesn't seem to work out well. The Sharks pumped them, but again, that's a box score thing. They won, I believe, 5-1. I watched the first 2 periods, dude. Ottawa crushed them. Like it was, I think the shots in the first period were like 16-4, and somehow San Jose was leading after one. Like it was not indicative of how it went, but it just looks like they're fighting everything right now. And do we think Ottawa bottom 5?
Bottom 5 in the division, right? That's what you're asking.
No, bottom 5. The rest in the league at the end of the year.
I don't think so, but I still think like bottom like 10 to 14.
Yeah, I don't think bottom 5. I think they always go on like those like weird win streaks at the end of the year because they're all a bunch of like young guys still, and then like I think they'll pull themselves out. But I was gonna say DeBrincat. I know in the beginning of the year when he first got there, they were talking about like long-term extensions with him and stuff, and I think now he's probably like, thank God I didn't sign a long-term extension here because he's not. I mean, it's some on him obviously too. You got to produce, right? But it's not a fit so far. And being an American player, another example, do you want to sign a long-term deal in Canada? There's plenty of places that'll have him, the guy tuck 40 goals. He has a great shot. Like he could play in a lot of places next year. But now what I wonder is, you remember they gave up a haul to get him at the draft. Are they going to give up are they going to get a haul in return if they trade him at the deadline? Because I mean, he's,
his contract's up at the end of the year.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So it's like, do you just flip him back again? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to say. Like, obviously, Josh Norris going down doesn't help their season, but I feel like this is more than Josh Norris. It's kind of been a thing where this has been like Ottawa the last few years. I feel like DJ Smith's definitely on the hot seat. As much as like I know they like him there, Brady Tkachuk tells me he loves him and stuff like that. When I've talked to Brady about it, it's just I don't know. I just feel like when you're losing like this year after year after year, there's got to be somebody to change, and they've locked up a lot of these young guys. So I don't know. I don't see a lot of it changing. But by the way, real quick on that Muzzin thing, it wasn't Muzzin that I thought was skating. It was Brody. So Muzzin's out to like February. Brody skating. Yep. Still, the Leafs are. I mean, their blue line's a disaster right now, but they have an awesome offense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like Ottawa, I think that's real. That team cannot. It's a lot like the Sharks. Ownership can't afford like them to be bad again. And they have a whole ownership thing.
Real quick, let's do our bottom 5 projection right now, since we're like talking about will they be bottom 5.
I mean, it's pretty evident. Like it's now starting to become it. Like without looking in order, like I would have said Columbus now because they.
I agree. Columbus. I agree. Okay.
Anaheim because their roster was already bad and they lost like they lost Drysdale. Like it's a shell.
Yeah.
And then Chicago because they are evidently tanking.
Yep.
You have Arizona there.
Arizona. Yeah, Arizona's an AHL team. And then the last one, I really thought it would be. I cannot believe that Vancouver roster does not figure it out. Because dude, the way they're losing, it's not like they're getting blown out. Like they're like. I mean, God, the first 5 games of the season, they lost them all. In every single game, they had a double-digit lead, right? Like, that's in between.
I think they're going to fire Boudreau, too.
So do I.
And they just extended him this past year. But what I heard is, I asked around a little bit, and people are like, yeah, it wasn't the GM that hired him. It was the owner that hired him. Like, he wanted him.
Oh.
And that just doesn't work like a lot of times. It's usually like the GM has to go hand in hand with the coach and that kind of thing. That's why like I think you see with like Dubas and stuff like that in Toronto, he has such like a long leash with like because Keefe's his guy, obviously from like the OH. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just interesting. I agree. I think I agree with everything. Maybe I would take out Anaheim for either your Sharks or Buffalo.
No way. Even after Drysdale?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the team that has like the most like young like skill. Like they always go on those.
They're gonna lose Klingberg.
But here's the thing too. Crazy thing. Anaheim hasn't won a game in regulation. Every game's been in overtime. That's crazy. Nuts. Like I didn't realize that till today when I was listening to the podcast. And by the way, going back to Buffalo real quick because I just think about bad like toilet bowl teams, but I listened to Craig Rivet and Andrew Peters' podcast, The Instigators, and I don't know why I listen to it because I'm not a Buffalo fan, but I like to listen to podcasts sometimes.
Dude, they bring back memories, man. I loved watching.
Yeah, and they're funny, they're interesting, they're blunt. Like I wish in St. Louis we almost had a podcast like that with former players where they're just kind of like the team sucks right now, and this is why. And it's kind of funny like listening to like since they played, they haven't been good. And he's like, like Peters was saying, like they haven't been good in like 10 years. They've been in the same spot, which is what you guys kind of said earlier. Like they always pick from like the same kind of area. And he's, he was just talking about, he blames the Pagulas, the owners. he's like, the team is just. They thought they could. You guys remember this, like the Villy Lanos, the Christian Ehrhoff.
That's what I'm saying. Every time they see, like, dude, what was crazy is that, like, back in the mid 2000s when I lived there,
Yeah.
dude, Darcy Regier had no money to spend. Like, so he had to, nickel and dime every single contract that he had to make that team good. Like, Drury and Briere should not have been like superstars, but they were in Buffalo and they made it work. And then the second the Pagulas took over, they started spending money. And every single time that they have spent money, I mean, is it Michael Samuelson, I believe?
Yes.
They signed that big deal.
But apparently he is like, it's a weird signing, but from what everyone tells me in Buffalo, they're like, that's going to be a good deal because
but he's hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt.
Like it's like,
I think that hurts
dude,
the
like
team
every
too.
time.
Yeah.
Every time that they spend money, it blows up in their face.
For sure.
And you know what I mean? Like, that's unfortunate.
In the free agent market, right. Yeah, it's
exactly like that. They've killed themselves.
It's funny,
dude, like Okposo.
Yeah, it's funny too. They talked about the Buffalo Bills, and they're like, apparently that Brandon Beane, their GM, and McDermott were kind of like, stay, like, because the Pagulas on that team too. Like, leave us alone, and we'll take care of the football stuff. And look at how good the Bills are.
Yeah,
the Bills are great. That city deserves it. But before we get any further, guys, we got to give a shout out to the sponsor of our podcast, Gamersaloon. If you are looking to get into wager matches for really any game or NHL, make sure you check out Gamersaloon.com. They also have power hours where they'll give away free $10 wager matches. And again, check that out at the link down below. All right, guys. Let's talk. So Elliot brought this up on Hockey Central, and over the last 3 weeks, like, what Karlsson's doing is essentially the Karlsson they signed. Karlsson has never done this with the shot. People think that he has been terrible. And again, this is box score watching. The year that they got him, that team was the best Sharks roster they've ever had, and when Karlsson was playing great. And they were the best team in the league, even on top of, for like an 8-week span, over that 123-point Tampa team. It just, then everyone got hurt, including Karlsson. And he's gotten hurt almost every single season. He's missed 20 games. And it just looked like the only way the Sharks are going to get out of that contract is if he retires. No one ever could have prognosticated a 100-point season and him looking like every single time he touches the puck, it's like a little bit of luck, but you see dude, there was a play. Benning scored a goal. Benning's not very good, but it got fired up the boards, and Karlsson had his stick jammed in the boards and let his skate kind of behind him, and it kicked off of his stick right to Benning at the point. And it was like, I was like, dude, that's a Joe Thornton type of pass. Like, he is just on it right now. And then Elliot started tweeting. I saw some tweets from the Sharks beat reporters about Greer's open to the possibility of trade. Well, no shit. If they have an $11.5 million player who is not going to return his value, he's got 4 more years. Obviously they're open to trading, right? But then Elliot brought up the fact that it's a thing. It could be a thing. What do you think the percentage that Erik Karlsson actually gets moved?
I think it's 20, just because how difficult is it? How many years does he have left?
4.
It's got 4 after this one. It would have to be one of the first, I believe, of its kind, which would be a double buyout or double retain. So the Sharks retain a little bit. Another team's involved, Arizona. They retain another little bit, and then the other team gets something, and the Arizona would get a draft pick, or, something.
Yeah, but how much? So if that's the case, though, that's 4 more years at retaining salary. The team that would you'd have to give up such a massive haul for that. Wouldn't you?
What do you mean? The Sharks would?
No. The team that eventually lands him.
Oh, because again, the max that you can retain, it would be half of the contract.
Yeah.
So that would
it'd be 25 each, right, for the Sharks, and then in this instance,
2.5. Yeah.
So that'd still be what, 2.8 per team.
100%. So what's crazy was before Ottawa was absolutely just falling apart. At the beginning of this, a couple weeks ago, Ottawa made a lot of sense because they have a lot of prospects. They need to win now, and a reunion of it. I don't think Erik Karlsson wants to go back to Ottawa, because especially how it ended with Hoffman and his wife. But it's not like they didn't have a life there.
I think they still have a house there.
It's not like it's impossible.
Yeah, I think they still have a house there.
It's not that isn't the same as someone going to Ottawa when they've never been there. DeBrincat. It's not the same as DeBrincat. So that made a lot of sense. But now I don't see how Ottawa can give up future assets for Erik Karlsson at 30, 32, like he's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
He's just, you know what I mean? Like this is not someone who's had freak injuries. This is a guy who has a bad groin, a bad ankle, and he can't he's still a magician on the breakout and in the offensive zone, but he's so soft in the defensive zone. And eventually, like he's going to either play himself or getting hurt because the removal of Brent Burns made this all possible. And I said this before the season. I think that the thing that was hurting Karlsson the most as a Shark is that they had Brent Burns. It was a right-handed shot, and Burns had 30 minutes a night, and they couldn't play in the same pairing. So now that you have like an alpha on the back end that is a puck mover, when they both were, it makes it a lot better for him. But
so here's my question for you though. Like, let's say hypothetically, because like I'm trying to figure out what his value is because you have to add that onto a trade. If he hit the free agency market today, Erik Karlsson.
Free agency?
Let's say no, I know he can't for 4 years. Let's say he did. What do you think a contract for him would be? Injury
after
risk after this season. Injury risk is there. He's obviously older than, what you would probably desire. Like, what do you think a fair value would be?
Fair? What do you think he would get?
What do you think? Market value.
I think he would get 8.
Do you think he would get 8?
If you have he might hit 100. Like he is.
I think that re-injury risk is so high. Like
it is.
Yeah,
we're saying that he doesn't get injured.
I think he gets 6.5, and I think that'd be an overpayment probably because I think in the back end of the deal, like I was listening to Andy Strickland today talk with Tim Peel about this exact topic, and even Strick was like, yeah, like this year he's awesome, right? But like, what about 2-3? Like you don't even know. It could be next year. I mean, it's just so random, and he could be back to not like he was god awful or anything, but it's just I mean, who knows? I mean, that it's a risky thing because of the injuries he had with it, because like it's all lower.
Because he was never like a great skater,
right? It's all like lower body, so it's it's once
he was at the beginning part of his career, but then he had an ankle injury, I believe.
Once you like lose your lower half, it deteriorates. It's tough.
So in this instance, then we're assuming like at least 2 firsts, right? That's like the starting conversation.
Oh, man, if it's double retained, that's something different because then the Sharks would probably get something too. Like because this is the type of deal that hasn't like happened yet in the NHL.
Yeah.
Because it would have to, because there's no way the Sharks could retain enough, and if they don't, the team because if you guys both just set his thing at 6.5, let's pretend that the other general managers are like that. There's no way the Sharks would make a trade unless you're getting. Oh man, like you're getting because they have so much dead money already. They're retaining Burns. They have, I believe, $2.2 million on Burns for another 2 seasons, and then they have Martin Jones's buyout, and Vlasic is getting bought out.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have like $8 million in retained or
the longer they hold on to him though, they're only hurting themselves. It's the thing. Like the Sharks, it's so weird this year. They're not an awful team. Only due to a few players.
Hey, this is the year though, Kesso. Like what you just said. The longer they hold on, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. They can't
get rid of
everyone.
You have to do it this year. You have to do it as soon as you can. Like once another injury happens or something. Like all those possibilities are off the table.
Yeah,
Blues. I mean, I go down there's like probably 10, 15 teams that are looking for a defenseman right now. It's crazy.
I was reserved to the fact that the only way Karlsson is gone from the Sharks is if he retires because of injury.
Yeah.
And that's a real possibility, right? Like he just might be like, hey, that's it. It is the only way the Sharks would ever get out of that contract. No one would have thought that he became Karlsson again. This is better than his best season, right? Like he's just absolutely going off. And the fact that he has done that, if Greer can, I was saying this on stream, if Greer can pull this off, that is a Doug Wilson level deal. Like, and again, like I've talked about how Doug Wilson, in my opinion, is one of the best general managers like in the last like 2 decades because of, obviously he didn't win a cup, but he stayed dominant for 20 seasons, and he swung for the huge things. If you can get out of Erik Karlsson after you inherited that, like that's insane, and they need to get bad. But the problem is like I don't know because like ownership can't want Karlsson's contract, but ownership also can't have empty stands. And it's like they can't be losers. Like if they lose Karlsson right now, dude, their defense is Matt Bennett.
Dude, just deal with it. I'm sorry. It's way more valuable long term. Like that's what I hate about some of that thinking though. It's way more valuable long term to just suck for a couple.
Is their owner rich? Like all owners are rich, but like, do they have a one guy that's like super rich, or is it multiple people? Like, how is their ownership?
Platner, it's one guy. Okay, so it's like I'm assuming, like I'm sure every ownership
and like
has a
and
bunch.
He's like super rich. You know what I mean? Like
like he has made it where it's like he's like we're not doing a full rebuild. They've stated.
Well, if he's super rich and he can handle a rebuild, he might say it. because he's just trying to save face publicly. But like the Blues, for example, like it'd be tough for them to rebuild with.
Part of me thinks so. I went out to San Jose in March, and it's kind of jarring because for the city of San Jose is incredible. Like you go down to like I don't remember the names. I don't want to say Santa Monica, but that's not that. There's a place about 3 blocks away, and it's like they're downtown, and it's incredible. Like it's absolutely beautiful place. It's always 75 degrees. Like it is nuts. But there's about a block surrounds it on all sides where it's like foreclosed garbage that is getting renovated, and like the whole block is being turned into just a bunch of stuff. And I'm wondering if like they're trying to sell that, and if the team is terrible, like wonder if that makes it harder. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think outside the box here.
I have no idea. I don't know if that's correlated.
He's worth
but still.
$7.7 billion. Okay, they're fine. They can rebuild.
You're not telling me like that's what I'm saying. Like I'm annoyed by this.
No. Because, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying I think they'll rebuild because that's a lot of money.
I think that they have no choice.
Yeah.
They tried again this season. Greer went out and signed an entire bottom 6 and whatever.
Yep.
And it's not going to work. And the Meyer contract, I think more interesting the Karlsson trade. If because like they're going to have to decide. They signed Hurdle for 8 years. They're going to have to give Meyer like the same kind of thing for like $9 million. And that's a decision. Because if they do that, like they have to keep going.
Yeah, dude, that's so
it sucks,
tough,
but
man.
like you have to because like the problem is with the Sharks is like their contract situation is so bad.
Dude, what sucks is that like those guys are great players, but they're not like foundational like franchise players, right? That you're forced into paying the $8 to $9 million.
Hurdle is a top 5 second line center in the league, borderline first line center, right? Like and like that borderline, and Meyer is. Probably a bottom 15 like right wing, like on most like if you lined up the best right wingers, right? Like Meyer's probably around 15th.
All I know is he fires
the puck,
right. And I like him for that reason. But
dude,
yeah,
he just releases that biscuit. That's all he does.
I mean, you could still like re-sign Meyer and and do like a rebuild like on the fly type of thing. I mean, look at like LA, and I'm not saying that like their rebuild was like kind of relatively quick. You know what I mean? And you can get a relatively quick.
They drafted
right.
Really
but I mean,
well.
but honestly, look at who on their team from their draft. If you think about it, though, who has made
their back end? It was Dursey and that because they back
right.
end,
but those guys weren't picked.
And Mikey Anderson. No, that's what's crazy. That those guys.
Turcotte's done nothing. Byfield's been rather, okay, like
Velarde
whatever.
Finally.
Velarde stepped up. But if you look at it's like their signings, you know what I mean? Like they brought in Arvidsson in a trade. They signed Fiala. Deneau's been awesome. Yeah. So it's like you don't know. I mean, the Sharks, I could see them, like Kessler said, get rid of Karlsson and sign Meyer. He's only 26, I think.
He's 26.
I don't know.
I didn't like this at the beginning because it's hard to watch the Sharks. It's very weird. I've never been through this as a sports fan, really. Like even because as a Red Sox Patriots fan, I've really never seen them been awful for an extended period of time in my life. But like the Sharks, like I want them to lose, but when I'm watching, I don't want that. Obviously, like you know what I mean. Like I want to see them dominate. I want to see them make the playoffs, all that. But it's not realistic expectations. And when you don't make the playoffs, what you want to see is hope, right? The problem is that like all of their kids are in the AHL, and they finally have a really good prospect group, and they're not letting them touch the NHL. And at the beginning of the season, I was like, man, like come on, give me something. And now I'm like, man, if they can get rid of all those guys, spend a lot of money on a couple of big free agents, again, that would be a huge brutal, like like that. But if that's rebuild wise, right? Like we just talked about DeBrincat, They like signed DeBrincat.
You guys need D. You guys need D.
And Eklund, yeah, the defense is really.
You need a goalie. A goalie and D.
Vlasic's the worst part of the team. Like he is an AHL level defenseman that's making $7 million a year for another 4 seasons. Like, is way worse than Karlsson. So that's a buyout because I believe it drops drastically. So, anyways, enough about the Sharks. That was a lot about.
Yeah, let's talk about a team that is kind of like the Sharks that doesn't reveal. Kessler's Penguins and Malkin hitting 1K. Games.
Yeah,
and another guy that was, people thought he was gone this summer. I mean, that was like a real thing. I talked to Chad Ruedel. He lives in St. Louis. He's one of the Penguins defensemen. And like, he gave me a little insight, like in the team group chat. And he's like, we thought he was gone. Like, it was coming down to like the 11th hour. I think Malkin had his feelings hurt a little bit in the summertime, and
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
what it
okay. He
looked
came
like.
back.
Yeah, we were talking about before we pressed record. It was awesome seeing that video they posted of
That was
Nikita, his
crazy.
son, reading the starting lineup, and then Malkin was crying. And then I'm sitting in my room working, but like I'm on my phone and I'm crying a little bit because just growing up watching him. He still looks good. Love to see
Yeah.
it. So we were talking also about that Centennial season, right? They released the top 100
Yes.
players. Malkin was snubbed on that list. It was a very popular snub. Like people still bring it up, and Taves was like top 40 or something at the
Yep.
time because I think this was
I
after
have such a bad
3 cups.
I'm in a minority. I'm not a big Taves fan.
I think I can't.
It's the
I
cups.
don't know
That's what
about him as
everyone's
a
obsessed
person
with.
or whatever.
Cups, man.
If you replace Taves on that team with Malkin, they win 3+ too.
Probably,
it's like Malkin might go down as the most underrated player of all time. And that's just because he was behind Crosby his whole career.
That's it. Yeah, I was gonna say it's Draisaitl, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be the same exact thing. Plus, like a European player, a little bit more like timid, I guess, like not as like into the publicity stuff.
Not outspoken.
But it's kind of funny though because if you look at like Crosby and McDavid, they're both like not the greatest media personalities. Like McDavid has the most awkward pictures
awful,
ever taken of him.
He gets himself in so much trouble by trying to not cause trouble.
Well, yeah, it happened
Like,
with that Team
it.
Canada thing whenever he had that quote, right? Like he doesn't
awful.
Yeah. But yeah, back to Malkin. I mean, it's great to see. I'm so glad he's going to finish his career as a Penguin unless something crazy happens and he signs a deal after that. And they're turning it around a little bit. I think they have like a 3-game win streak right now? Maybe it's 2, I forget. So they just reunited. For some reason, they put Raquel back to the second line a little bit whenever Gensel came back, but they have Gensel, Crosby, and Raquel back together, and that's one of the best lines in the league, I think, right now. Raquel's been awesome. So they'll continue to do well. I feel pretty strong and confident about them continuing this.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. Like they'll definitely. I mean, the Islanders look good too. Man, the Metro is pretty crazy.
Oh, there's one more team I wanted to
to.
bring up though because I'm surprised at their record, and I think they'll be fine. And that's the Florida Panthers. You guys, I don't know if you've watched any of the games. I haven't, so I do want to ask. They're getting like 50 shots a game. Their underlying like advanced stats are really good. They're just losing games.
I have only watched one Panthers game. But again, I think you lose. Like adding Kachuk is still, but like losing your two of your 3 best players probably after Barkov, like that's gotta be an adjustment.
Yes.
So
Like I feel like like that's gotta be tough and take some time. And not to mention, it's so much of a different player.
Well, and Ekblad's only played like 8 games too, so I think that's been like an issue. Obviously, I mean, like he's a number 1 for them, so it's tough with Ekblad, and I mean, obviously, I mean, Bob hasn't been playing as good as
that contract is going to be what cost them a cup.
Yeah,
I said the second it was signed or like made, I was like, that's the dumbest one. Yeah,
it's just like they had no like they needed to win. And they needed a big splash because like that's not a team that can't just afford to always be bad. I'll always respect the team for going for it.
Yeah,
like I think that the people that like famously what Columbus did when all those play like I think it was Duchesne. They were all free agents, and Kekalainen was like, nope, we're going for it. Like, and they weren't anything special. Like they were not like you can never give them crap about that, and I think. Bob was like because they tried to land Panarin too. Like it was going to be like
apparently they would until John Davidson got in the way with the Rangers and obviously his ties with Columbus. I mean, I think with the Florida thing too is like Bob, that was like Dale Talon just trying to save his butt before he got fired too.
yeah, that too. But I'll say this, like I think that I said this before. Obviously, Quenneville deserved to be fired 100%. Needs to be suspended for a year or however much long for his involvement in what went on in Chicago. I think that Florida gives Tampa a run and maybe like they win I think that them having a rookie coach with the team that they had really hurt them when they got down against Tampa. And I think that It's just that was pretty tough.
We
but yeah, they'll be fine.
We got to bring up, since like it's kind of fitting with Florida. Huberdeau returned obviously with Uyghur, and pretty cool. Like him and Barkov. Barkov sauced him a puck down the ice, and he buried one in the warm up, and the fans went nuts, just like old times. And Huberdeau scores the game winner in the shootout. Now it's time to like kind of. I mean, it's so early still. I mean, we're only like 20 games in the season altogether, but revisiting that trade and just early reactions to it. I mean, I definitely think, like you guys were kind of saying, like I think like losing Uyghur actually hurt the most, maybe because that's like where they were like weakest on Florida. But I think in the long term, like Matthew Tkachuk he's just so good. He's such a gamer, and I think for like the playoffs, like you're gonna notice Florida, like if they make the playoffs, like I think they will. And apparently, I was like reading some stuff today with Duclair returning soon. They're gonna have to like. I mean, they've been playing like when Ekblad was out. They played a game like down a guy like. They're right there on the cap, so they're gonna have to trade like a Duclair or a Bennett or a Reinhardt just to like kind of alleviate some of that money issue. But the thing I was saying though, kind of about like the Tkachuk, is I just think he's just such a gamer in the playoffs. I think that's like a better move for them right now. And like Huberdeau, you're kind of seeing like he put up 115 points, whatever. But you kind of see like when Daryl Sutter's like, I want you to play this way because this is what won me cups in LA, and this is what wins. I mean, he's on the third line right now, and I don't think people. It's an adjustment. The guy's driving his Lamborghini to the rink. Now he's driving a pickup truck. He's got to play for Daryl Sutter.
It is cold out there right now too.
It's a whole different life, and I always say like the first year of a guy going like that was somewhere for a long time. Like just give him a year. Like I watched Falk here and
hockey is so much different than all the other sports. Like we're gonna talk about nostalgia and like the changing because that was brought up in the comment section.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in the NFL when a mass player are changed, like it's very position based where like they can excel and do their job. It's not relying on chemistry as much. Receivers and quarterbacks, yes, but like most positions when there's a lot of turnover, it's not as bad. Hockey, like it's so fast that you don't have time to like not know where your boys are at, Yeah. And I think that like just what you alluded to, like same thing with like Ottawa when we brought it up earlier, like it just takes a lot of time to get those big, like and you look at the Calgary roster and like when they separate Huberdeau and everyone, like dude, they have a deep team.
He's still getting almost 20 minutes a game on the third line because like I was following. that
he's getting all.
It was demoted or whatever, but like he has 4 points in 5 games. It seems to be working out. I know it's not the 115 point pace that he was on last year or whatever, but
it's just telling because you know what he's doing, Sutter. He's trying to put him with like Dubé and Coleman, and like he's not putting them with Lindholm and Kadri. I mean, he has played with them. Obviously, it's just funny because I mean he's not going to get anywhere close to 115 points. I think everyone knew that kind of.
He got the bag though.
Oh, so for sure.
It doesn't matter. Hey, I've seen it work out where you sign a player and your superstars on the third line. Whenever we put Kessel on the third line with Bonino and Hagelin,
won you a cup.
So like maybe that's the Huberdeau, Backlund, Coleman line or something. I don't know, but it could work out.
Yeah.
Dude, that line stepped over the boards with Brandon Dillon and Rowan Pollock, and it was literally 3 minutes. And it felt like, I hated watching.
It was so unfair because that was your third line. Like
it was bad. Okay, we mentioned this earlier too about American Thanksgiving. There's a big stat. I think it's like 80%. You have an 80% chance in the NHL if you are in the playoffs by American Thanksgiving. I believe American Thanksgiving is coming up. I'm a Canadian. Leave me alone. It's been a while since I've lived in the States.
It's in 2 days. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so the East is very interesting because I see two somewhat. Was Detroit is currently in a wild card spot, but it's what's outside. So Montreal is 3 points back of a playoff spot, and then it's Philly and Washington. Washington looks like no Backstrom and the Kemper signing is just not working out. So let's assume we're in agreement that Montreal and Philly are not making the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I'm in agreement.
Yeah,
there.
They won't make it.
Apologize, Habs fan, but like let's be real. I'm gonna get so much hate for that. Florida, Pittsburgh are on the outs. The Rangers and Detroit are in the wild card spot.
Yep.
We just said we think Florida's gonna make the playoffs.
Yep.
So who falls out? Detroit?
I think it's Detroit. Yep, I think it's Detroit.
Okay. Do you think? What's crazy to me is, do you think Pittsburgh makes it?
Yeah.
Okay, who do they take out? The Islanders?
I think the Islanders can fall out. I even think the Rangers can. I know. I'm always anti-Rangers. I know.
It's just I'm with you, man. I said this last year that they overachieved because they had one of the best statistical goaltenders in the history.
Chris
of the
Kreider
league.
had an amazing year, 50 goals. It's not happening this year. Like,
maybe it is the Rangers. Man, the Rangers not making the playoffs would be so bad for that organ.
I feel like the goalie's too good that he'll somehow.
It is. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I feel like it's just going to be a three-way battle with like Pitt, Florida, and the Rangers, and you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. It's just
I want to see Toronto survive that decor collapsing because of injury, and then it's Murray and Samsonov and Shalgren.
Yeah.
And it's like that isn't guaranteed, even with Austin
Matthews. Like, I feel most comfortable with Boston, Tampa, Carolina. Like I said, I know the Devils. I know the Devils are so far ahead. You just never know with hockey. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I never thought the Blues would go 0-8. Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, they're on a 13-game heater. They're gonna lose. They're gonna have a terrible losing streak at one point in the year too. It's just if you can stop those losing streaks. You don't want to get them past 3 or 4 games. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying the Devils are falling playoff spot. So all the Devils fans that are gonna be acting like I'm a hater, no, I'm not. I'm just saying. They're not going to, be at this pace all year.
They're not going to win 50 in a row, but I mean, I just think they're too solid.
I mean, they might. I mean,
this isn't like the Crosby days, where like they're just disgusting and like, I don't think they're like that or the Avalanche teams, but they're good. Let's
talk about Shane Wright.
Yeah.
So what's going on with Shane Wright right now is Seattle is clearly manipulating the ability to send him to the AHL. So for anyone that doesn't know, he is an OHL player, and if they were to send him down, he can't go to the AHL. He has to go to the OHL. Issue is that Kingston, as a avid OHL watcher, Kingston is awful, and he's not going to get a Memorial Cup run. And I think that if he goes back, he probably wrecks the league. So I was listening to 32 Thoughts, Hockey Central. 32 Thoughts, and Elliot brought up this thing about how Shane Wright's development has been the absolute most devastating on a prospect that was this high end in like potentially like ever, because his first year he got the exceptional stats, and then it's like COVID hit. He was told that he was going to play. He signed in the OHL. COVID hit, and the OHL didn't open up. WHL did for a little while. Obviously the Americans did, and that's why the Americans dominated that draft. He comes back, and it's a shortened season, and all the COVID restrictions again, but he had kind of an underwhelming season. And now he fell to Seattle, and Seattle was like, okay, let's try and get it going. And he has been the coach does not have faith in him, and that's got to be tough on him, because obviously you saw him at the draft, like his bravado. He took pride in being first overall,
Yes.
And obviously he's always been a winner. And it's like you get a guy like that, we're like, nah, dude, like we don't have faith in you to right now currently. But he can't go back to the OHL because again the team is so bad. So what's happening now? Let's do this up. What Seattle has done is if you sit someone for 5 games, they've sat long enough where they can go on a conditioning stint. They can go down to the AHL and play a maximum of 5 games, which is big, which I didn't realize was a thing. And then at the end of the 5 games, they have to be called back up. They have to sit for 5 more, and then they can go back down. And they actually got kind of screwed because I believe McCann got hurt in what would have been, he sat for 4. McCann got hurt in the day of, and they had to throw Wright in, and that reset his clock. He missed 4 again, and now he misses 5. And they sent him down to Coachella, and he just scored tonight.
He just scored an hour ago, yeah.
Yeah. And now it works out where he'll play 5 in the AHL, come back for a game against Montreal, which I feel like Seattle might play him, and then the World Juniors start, and basically a month is off, right? What do you think that they should do with Wright, and do you think that this is like Kotkaniemi all over again, where it just seems like a total mismanagement of a prospect and potentially damaging for like ever? Let's start with you, Padre.
They can send him back after the World Juniors, though, right? Back to June, like to the junior team.
He can go back to the OHL at the thing, and it's all going to depend on. I'm assuming they're getting pressure from Seattle to get a trade in place.
Yeah, I think like Seattle's like giving them time, and they know they're going to send him to the World Juniors, and
I don't want him back in the OHL.
Yeah,
this is the Dogs.
I mean, I feel like development wise, this is it might not be that bad. Because I know it sounds like crazy because like he should have been probably playing like right now, and that's not good development. But
he should be in the AHL.
That's
where
for sure.
Like, yeah.
But being able to like practice with the NHLers, live the life, see what it's like, and then get it taken away from you, and then you got to go back down, and then realize like I was there. You know what I mean? I want to be back there, and maybe next year like he comes up and there's more of like a role for him because clearly like right now they're in more of like a we need to win because we last year was not good. I mean, I just see him taking like Wenberg's spot ultimately, down the road because I think it'll be him and Beniers down the middle eventually.
For sure.
And
I think that's what they...
Yeah, that's what they hope. And I just feel like this might not be the worst thing. Go down the HL5 games. By that time, like you listen to the same thing I did. And he'll play against Montreal, and then he'll go to the World Juniors, and then after that, whatever. So it might be like a lost year in terms of, playing so much, but I think it'll be like maybe good for him ultimately in the end.
I hope so, man. Like it sucks to see like again, I don't think we're gonna see like the impact of what COVID did to like obviously the world, but like we're a hockey podcast, so we're talking about hockey. Like that year, again, someone who lives in a city with an OHL team, and I go to every single game, and like the loss of a season, the OHL, like the CHL, the world, like the major junior leagues, they have like a 3-year window, and it's so fat. Like you get a player, your team is bad. You get a high pick. You get someone that is going to be drafted higher, looks like an NHLer. You have them for like 2 seasons, and you're in charge of their development. And then they're drafted, and more often than not, they get one more year in the OHL. But man, losing basically a season and a half of development where you're not playing, like he was not playing, where it's just devastating to like development of a career, right? And you saw his last OHL season, why he fell to 4 is that he was not dominant in the OHL. Like he was great, and I believe it was over a point per game, but it was not like exceptional status, what it looked like he was going to be. It looked like he was going to be like John Tavares kind of situation. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I'm selfishly as an OHL fan, like I'm glad that that clause is in place where like they have to go back to the OHL or the CHL, because that protects those leagues. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna be crazy. I'm a huge Wright fan. After meeting him at the draft and seeing his look on his face, like that he didn't go 1, like he wanted to go 1 for to go 1. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to be a winner, and like that. There's like I think in sports, like that's something that should be, desired. So we'll have to see. All right, let's bring up the nostalgia talk. Okay, so I'm gonna let you take this away because someone disagreed. I believe in my Discord too.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna set the table, so then you can go. Basically, in the last episode, we talked about how me and Padre both said that we think the NHL has changed more than any other sport. In terms of how it's played and those big rivalries and everything like that, and other side. So Kessler, you go.
Yeah, and I disagreed, and I think we were at the tail end of the podcast where I'm like, oh, we can go for an hour on this thing, because you guys, you said, Sleeves, the NHL has changed more than any other sport. You're looking at like rivalries and stuff, like what we used to watch as kids, and I think there was a heavy nostalgia bias, and I also think like the only other sport I really watch is the NFL. And I think that's changed like a ton as well, right? Like just because
I don't know.
Way higher scoring league now. There's so many more rules, not just against like hitting the quarterbacks, but like defensive pass interference, right? Like whenever Ty Law and the Patriots, whenever they dominated, you remember that? Like they had to put in like new rules because they were so good. And I also have to think like it's just back to the nostalgia thing. Like my favorite era of hockey is like the late 90s, early 2000s. I think we're all that way because we're that age. Some of our favorite players that we've ever watched were around there. But I think whenever we speak like 20 years from now, there's going to be a lot of people that are 30 then. And they'll be like, well, we got to watch like McDavid, Crosby, Ovechkin, etc. Like all at the same time, Cale Makar. And I think no matter what, it's always going to be like that. Like whatever era you grew up watching was the best one.
I think so.
And that's how it is for a lot of things.
I find that I'm way more invested into hockey. Well, first of all, it's my job.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like the same. I don't know. I guess this is like nostalgia is definitely a part of it. I guess like. Because you just don't have any responsibility, so all you know is like all good times, basically. So maybe it has something to do with what's going on as well. Hey, Padre, like, do you think that like the era that we watched, the early 2000s and whatnot, and that like, do you think that's nostalgia, or do you think that like that style of hockey was just better? And you won a cup, so it's like
I don't know. Part of the reason why I liked the way we won the cup was because we did play that style of hockey. We banged, we hit, we fought a little bit. The way it was big, strong, mean team. I miss the physicality a lot. There's not a ton of night to night basis in the NHL regular season. Fights are so far down. Like I said before on the podcast, I understand fighting's with CTE. I know all the stuff. I get it. I'm just saying like. There's just not the hatred there used to be when there's something like look how like I used this a few weeks ago the example just like Matthew Tkachuk is like the bar in the league to like set like a fire almost like between him and Doughty and him and Cassian and now he's gonna probably do something to the Lightning in the next few what I mean it's always something with Tkachuk or Brendan Lemieux and he bit Brady's finger. It's just there's not. Marchand when he licked, his face.
That's funny. I like that stuff.
But that's the kind of stuff that's just like, oh my gosh, and I feel like that kind of stuff happened all the time back in the day. Not the licking of the face, but the stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Going to all those Sabres games, like in their like greatest, probably the 2005 Sabres has got to be the best Sabre team ever.
Yeah.
Even though they went to the Cup, like it's got to be their best team. Even like that era, like those couple of years, the year before the lockout and after the lockout, man, I remember the brawl. Like, dude, when was the last time we saw? For anyone that is not old enough, if you were born after 2000, I need you guys to go and watch on YouTube. It'll look awful, which makes me sad too. It makes me feel really, really old. Because when you go watch old hockey highlights, man, even if it's like back in like 2004, you would think that like, oh, it's not that bad. It is. Like VHS. Ottawa and Philly. It is a two teams. It was always the Leafs, Philly, and Ottawa in a circle. One of them would just knock each other out every single year. And it was in, I don't even think it was a playoff game. And I believe it's the record for the most penalty minutes of all time. And I can remember watching this on SportsCenter like the next day. It is one of the funniest videos you will watch as a hockey fan because it is a line brawl, and then a line brawl, and then another one. And then when it's Martin Havlat and like, I think Spezza was still there, and you're like, oh, there's no way. And then they drop the gloves
Donald
and the
Brashear,
announcers.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Dude, the announcers are laughing because they're like, "Oh, it's over." Like there's 5 guys left on the bench, and it's like every single player on both teams was so committed to not giving an inch.
It's
that is not ever going to happen.
It's crazy because like Sammy Kappanen's in there, and like that's a guy that would never fight. I just pulled that video up.
It is such a hilarious video to watch because once you get to like the 4th line brawl, you're like, there's no way it could happen again. There's no way. There's like 3 guys on the bench and they drop the puck and immediately all of them are just like, let's go, and like ding ding ding. And I remember watching Ray Emery fight Andrew Peters, and like he absolutely broke Marty Baron, who still was like, I'm gonna go fight a professional boxer, because like Ray Emery was like I'm pretty sure he was an amateur boxer. Marty Baron is not a fighter. He's got his bell rung, and Andrew Peters went and fought him, and it was like line brawls. And I don't think that's great for the health of the players, 100%. And I don't think that should happen every game. But do you think we'll ever see anything like that again?
No, we won't. But I think like it's not the same thing. But back to that though, like whenever we look at that time period, one of the reasons that like obviously Lemieux had health issues, but during that time. You had some like not skilled players that were making it in the league just because they were holding and just playing the most boring style of hockey. And those types of players, we saw it right after the lockout. Darian Hatcher, signed to the Flyers. Mm-hmm. That guy couldn't hang in the new NHL. You can't hide those bad players anymore. Like you just can't. Like you're not going to dress a fighter and play him 8 minutes because they're just going to like crush your team. We were just talking about
And it's so funny because like what ends up happening is the guys that can do that and have that snarl are like the most sought at, like Tkachuk.
Dude, Tkachuk is like the ultimate enigma because he's amazing and he does that, which is awesome.
Yeah,
like and
like Tom Wilson was like teams would have paid $7 million a year for him because he could pot 30 or 40 points, but he would obviously his hits were brutal and he was easily one of the dirtiest players, but like he would fight anyone or for the most part and cause like a ruckus, and teams desperately wanted that. And I think that you're right, like because the game has gone so skilled, and maybe it's this might be the thing because we're old, that what people will now remember, like you basically have to have a score is like your punch in the head or your fight, like you know what I mean, like a goal, like you know what I mean. And I like equate that to like like baseball, like when a team hits a home run and like they're not gonna fight, right? But like like Batista's home run, like you know what I mean? Like that's a answer back via offense, and I guess like that's just what it is in hockey now. And I guess maybe because we got to see what happens when. It's the only sport, we said this last week, it's the only sport where you can legally answer the bell.
Yep.
And these guys are just, you know what I mean? There's a lot of them that have so much pride and are willing to just throw bombs at each other to prove it, right? And, again, I don't think it's where I want to see a line brawl every single time. But watching the Leafs, I think every Leafs fan listening, one of the most frustrating things that you've got to feel about the team over the last 5 years is not the fact that you don't have talent. This is probably the most talented players that will ever play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. No one wants to beat someone up if they're losing.
Yeah.
Like in the playoffs, what used to happen was you would lose, but at the last 5 minutes,
It'd be
you were
always the
making
fight.
sure that they were getting a piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was guaranteed that they were getting a piece no matter what, because the next game, you're going to make sure that they remember, and there is none of that. And that's the tough part. I think like that's the part that I like that I think was because man, yeah, you as a sports fan, you love your team and you want to hate someone else, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like there isn't a lot of hate. Like as a Penguins fan, is there a team that you
No,
detest?
there's not a team I hate right now. And I think another thing that plays into this, it's not even like sports related, I guess, is that like back then your way of consuming media was like watching Sports Center, right?
Yeah.
And like moments lived for a little bit. Like you would talk about them at work the next day or at school or something. But like with the internet now, it's just like everything happens and it's forgotten in the next in 20 minutes. Back then it wasn't. Like there wasn't that much shit going on. Like they're just
It was like Sports Center. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
like
You have to wait for the next game.
there wasn't much going on, so it's like moments lived. And that's what that like music and movies and stuff like that. Like a big movie came out and like people talked about it all summer, right? But like that doesn't, everything's forgotten in a day or two just because we're in that information age.
Yeah, the closest thing I think, like I said, is the recently like brawl wise was the Kachuk thing was starting, but then like Mike Smith and Cam Talbot finally, you know what I mean? There was a goalie fight. And but anytime there's a goalie fight, because me being a goalie, I think it's so sick. And, that was like my favorite thing when I was a kid is like, oh my gosh,
common.
Goalie fight, because like the last one before that, God, I mean.
Do you remember the Brent Johnson one?
Yeah, when he pumped DiPietro in the eye.
That was
And,
if you've never seen if you haven't watched the documentary on I was just too young to really appreciate the Avalanche and the Red Wings.
Oh yeah.
That is too
Osgood
far.
and Waugh.
I actually think that was too far because dudes were trying to end people's lives.
Oh yeah.
But like that was two teams that hate every single human being on both those rosters, hated each other with a passion. Like it was just like it was almost scary. Like I feel like that is the complete other end of the spectrum. But like dude, the goalie Vernon and Waugh, man, and Vernon is not a big dude.
Oh.
And they just
same with Osgood. He wasn't big either.
I don't think any rivalry in hockey would ever top that one again, just because of how things are now.
Yeah,
I mean, what's crazy is Vegas and the Sharks.
At one point, yeah, they were pretty.
Oddly enough, is probably the best in the last. I feel like Washington and Pittsburgh because of how Washington kept getting knocked out. But once they won a cup, it was like. They exercised their demons. Like it was over. Like you know what I mean. Like
there was so many outside things too with that like Red Wings and Avalanche one, like the Claude Lemieux on like Chris Draper, right? Like
that was it. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, there was that, and like I don't see anything in this day and age in sports. Like everybody's friends, like they play golf
problem.
And.
Yeah, it's all too friendly.
It's a business,
and they were friends back then, but like the access to each other was not the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you weren't able to hang out with like
social media, follow each other, DM each other.
Yeah.
Like Logan and Doughty are like best friends. And as a Sharks fan, like no Sharks fans, like dude, like that kind of is like
I think
right, but like that's just how it.
I was thinking of this a few seconds ago. It's like the next goalie fight. I don't know who it's gonna be between, but I think it's Benner. I think Benner's gonna be. He's been asking for it.
I hope so.
Asking for it for years.
He's been asking for it,
and it's he wants it. Now, he's like because I've been trying to think.
Tried.
Oh yeah, he's tried.
Dubnyk tried. He was. That's because that's what I was when you said what's the last goalie fight, and I was like, man, I think the Sharks had one, but it was Benner. I think he knocked Karlsson over at the intermission.
No, he fake punched Karlsson.
That was it. He fake punched him. Skated by
and he had to get off the long way because the visitors come out in the corner at the Sharks arena.
Yep.
And Dubnyk skated over them, and Bitter was getting grabbed by the ref as he was getting thrown off, and he tried to they shoved each other kind of like when the ref was like in between them, so that nothing happened. But it's just like I would.
Dubnyk's a scary dude.
I mean, I wouldn't fight him. He's 6'6". There's no chance.
I want to see Bitter fight just because I think I think he'd like surprise some people. But I think he I've seen him fight in the AHL, and I mean he was fine. So it's like I don't know, but I just don't know who he'd fight because you're kind of losing those old school like Mike Smith. Does that surprise you that Mike Smith was going to fight Cam Talbot? No.
No, he's insane.
Mike
Smith is
you need a guy that's fires cross. You know what I mean? You need a guy that's like that, and I think Benner's that guy. Gets fired up.
What's a rivalry that you could see brewing that could be good? I'm trying to think of one with the Devils.
Florida and Tampa.
I think, dude, you know what's funny? The year not the last one where they got swept, dude, Florida was just a team that was just like, we're not losing.
Yeah.
But Tampa was so good the year they won the last cup.
Florida and Tampa and in Calgary and Edmonton. Those are the 4 teams in our sport right now.
With Kadri now, there's no way this sucks because I really don't like the human being in Evander Kane. But his injury is awful. That I don't wish that upon anyone. But could you imagine a playoff series of Evander Kane and Nazem Kadri?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. That's the stuff, right? Because that's 2 dudes. If one of them is gonna lose, one of them is gonna go and make it so that the next game they remember.
What if somebody gets Ryan Reeves? What if Calgary gets him?
Maybe, but I think
he's on the outs in New York, and Ryan Reeves. I was
gonna say
he'll start it up.
Yeah, that's his job, and people just know. And not to mention, it's funny because he's so. I remember the thing about Evander. Say what you want about Evander Kane and the person, and all the Ryan Reeves stuff. I don't know many human beings in the NHL that would actually be okay with fighting him, and he did it a couple times. So I'll never take when he was a Shark. He was probably my favorite player, and for all the John back and forth, and Reeves got in his head too much because he's too talented of a player. The Sharks needed him. But man, he answered the bell. He did it himself. He didn't need someone else to go fight him. But the Giordano thing, this is the last thing we'll touch on this. Toronto is Matthews does not show emotion, and there's a point at which that's good. You don't get flustered or whatever. But dude, how is someone who's that good at something not get so mad at that one point you just gotta?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
not
weird.
He's small. He's a big man. He could probably do some damage. And it's Giordano has to come in and tackle. I can't remember who it was. It's gonna drive me nuts. But that's the thing. I would love a Montreal and the Montreal-Toronto rivalry. But
I think it does a lot for your team too. Whenever you see your captain do that, remember the Againla LeCavier one. Whenever you see that happen, and it's your captain doing that, that's why it fires up the whole team.
Yeah, and
he, in my opinion, is one of the all-time best captains
ever
in the NHL.
I get so sick of seeing Leafs fans we don't want him to hurt his hand. We don't want him to hurt it. Okay, great.
True.
Go watch Sidney Crosby. Cat's seeing Sidney Crosby drop the gloves multiple times in his career. And you know what?
I will say though, in defense of the other person, Crosby would always do the doesn't even let the other guy get a chance to drop the gloves. He just attacks him.
Yeah, he would do the immediate run at and then kind of hold.
I don't care.
McKinnon,
he's the captain. He does that.
McKinnon does it sometimes. I mean, those guys are strong as an ox. Those guys are strong as an ox.
Is kind of nasty.
Oh yeah, but that's part of his game too. Crosby though, Crosby's so strong. McKinnon is so strong. I mean, like you guys said, like you said, Matthews. He is Marner. I don't expect him to fight. That's fine. He's so little. He's like a little. He's like a little boy. But yeah,
I think this is the divide. It's the people that get angry when a clean hit happens and someone goes and defends it. And I can guarantee you, me and Padre are on the same line here. And I don't know where you are, Kesso, but if some dude absolutely, if Logan goes down through the neutral zone with his head down and Couture gets absolutely crushed, not a penalty, clean hit. If someone does not get up and start throwing rights immediately,
there's a problem. I agree with that. No, I'm on your side with that. That's just the thing. You defend those players. It is what it is.
And people are like, dude, that's not even hit now. He's got to fight something. Man, the human element, bro. You need that. If that happens on the Leafs, they just wave Simmons. like he's gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's left? Like, you know, and like I think that's a big problem. And I think that's where the line is drawn with nostalgia of what we used to watch when we were kids, where I get that. Like, if your team hits someone hard and it is clean, now you got to deal with a fight. Probably annoying, yes.
Right.
But man, just think if your boy got munched and you like if you see it and you can legally do something.
I think there's a time though where it goes too far. The Penguins like ran into this for a few years where it's like they had that one infamous series against the Flyers. I think they lost like 6 games, but there was like a ton of penalty minutes. Like they were getting destroyed, and it's like Malkin and Crosby were taking penalties. Like they were just getting into like not brawls but like scuffles every single time.
Right.
And I think they were in their own head a little bit too much. But you have to defend your star players.
I'll tell you this, man. The playoff series in which Austin Matthews drops the mitts, that's the series they win.
He has to do it game 1 or game 2. Just do it.
Game 1 or 2, dude. Like, dude, I remember like one of my favorite fights as a Sharks fan. The Sharks were getting blasted by Anaheim, and it was the best Sharks team that they've ever had in 2009. And game 5, the first thing at the opening draw is Thornton, who was not really a fighter in his time, dropped him immediately with Getzlaf. There was nothing said prior. It was just like, we're gonna fight right now, and like that's how the game started. And, like, I don't know, it's just that's what I think. That's you know, and guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please let us know if you agree or disagree. But you know, it's it is definitely nostalgia. I think that I still think, I don't know.
It's nostalgia, dude. It's the same thing with music. What your favorite music's what you grew up with, man.
And you think that's the best. Yeah. You're right on that. Because, yeah, watching McDavid, dude. Watching McDavid, there's times that goal he scored against, I think it was Carolina, where he just cut through everyone. It's like, that's art.
Yeah.
Like, that is, you know what I mean? Like, that's stuff that you won't see, and you wouldn't have seen that back then. So I can.
Yeah, dude. We're gonna be like 5 years from now, and it's like it's like Tortorella watching like Zegras. Like, you know, what is he doing out there? Skilling it up. Like, let's avoid being those people.
Yeah. To be fair, I love that kind of stuff. I think it'll get out of hand. Like, I think it'll be where someone's just got to get destroyed. Like, you just got to hit someone. Last thing before we go, happened in the OHL. One of my favorite ice dogs ever. He was a viewer of mine, Mason Howard. He would smash everyone. He couldn't skate, couldn't shoot, but anytime that someone entered the blue line, he would hit. They got a Michigan scored on them, and he went and absolutely dummied the kid. And in the replay, it shows this kid scoring the Michigan. He scores it. He goes and puts his hand up, and Mason put him through the boards. And it's like, that's what it takes. It's going to take someone where Zegras goes and does it with his head down and gets crushed before that is like kind of stopped. But anyways, this was, man, we go on. I think rants are our best thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, we do once a week, right, for like real hockey. Mm-hmm. We can't capture all the news, but I think we enjoy talking about it in general. We should go over the topic. Yeah.
Give us a topic you want us to discuss. I think that's what I want. Yeah, that's your homework, chat. You know, viewers that you're listening, let us know on Twitter or my Discord or in the comment section. Give us a topic in hockey that you want us to discuss. Because to be fair, I mean, we all agreed on the fighting for the most part. But I bet you we disagree on quite a bit. I mean, we do. So
probably, yeah.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for episode 57. We will see you guys next time where we'll go over the GWC. I think that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the GWC.
Big episode coming up here for all the gamers out there. So the comments that we will have a gaming podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah. I don't know how much more gaming NHL content you guys can consume on my channel, but I love it. I love the passion. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.